Thank you for tuning in to TalkWad.com, the world's fastest growing internet radio network. Please check out all the other great shows on www.talkwad.com.
And this is Papa, and on behalf of Nene, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, this is another webisode of Ain't That Some Shh. And I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Frodo for the intro. That's the musical stylings of Frodo, and I'd like to give a shout out to the CEO Nolan Ray and some of the other great hosts of the other shows in the TalkWad network. And, the topic of the day I just thought about is to think about. This morning when I woke up this morning, it was raining, and, I don't really like to drive in the rain or anything because, well, for one, it's hard to see where you're going. And, earlier today, I was listening to a show, Emergent Spirit. You can check that out on the TalkWad network under the faith section. And, when I was listening to it, it actually made me think about some of the things that we actually take for granted. For one, even though I don't like driving in the rain, my mentality should have been, there's people out there, on the streets. They don't have. At least I have shelter from the rain, and at least I'm driving. Some people don't have cars. Earlier today, I was listening to the show Emergent Spirit, and they mentioned how they talk a lot about immigration and how a lot of the workers are treated, actually mistreated, and that's a lot of things that go on, and it makes me wonder, like, how much of what we use and take for granted is off of the backs of others, because of other people's exploitations. I mean, we've seen movies on things like Blood Diamond. Of course, they brought up tomatoes, like in the tomato fields. It's basically like modern day slavery. And, I would actually advise you to check that out because, they go really in depth, and it's very interesting and very insightful. Even some of the technology we use, I kind of wonder about that. Like, we like to think of ourselves as good people, I would like to think. And then, if we know that something isn't right, sometimes I wonder, do we even care? How much does it really affect us? And, that's a lot of to think about. That's a lot to think about, both positive and negative. And I almost forgot, if you want to call in and share your thoughts, the number to call in is area code 727 493 2055. That's area code 727 493 2055. And feel free to call in and share, some of your thoughts about, whether they're just random thoughts or thoughts pertaining to the topic of discussion, or, just some things that you would like to share. Um, a lot of the things that go on, when I hear about them, like I would like to think that I have some knowledge, and everybody, nobody knows everything. We're all ignorant to some degree. We all have some lack of knowledge. That's why information and knowledge is powerful. Uh, Granted that it's the right information. That's one of the reasons why I love the internet, because with the internet you have access to so much information, and you can find things out that uh you can find a lot out about information that you may not have even known existed. And we have a caller on the air. Uh Caller, we appreciate your call.
Hey, this is DJ White Skittles.
DJ White Skittles. I never had the White Skittles, man.
Hey, man, ain't that some
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, man. I think that's a conspiracy. They hid the White Skittles from us.
Yeah, well, you just said that not everybody knows it all. DJ White Skittles knows it all. Ain't that some
So, DJ White Skittles, would you like to share your thoughts?
Well, between my brother and I, we know everything in the world. Ask me any question.
Okay, well, how much do you think? How much do you think when we hear about some of the issues that are going on? Like, there's a lot of things that going on that most of us, we don't know it all. So you have to excuse us, but like when we hear about these things, like, do you think that a lot of these problems exist in the world because we're unaware of them, or not conscious of them, or
Well, my brother knows that one.
do you think it's more of a result of us not really having concern for those problems?
Well, concern is a weakness. You see, it's a weakness for people. So if you don't worry about anybody else but yourself, you win. Every time you win. And that's just how it is.
So you think that? Do you think that basically, when it comes to survival, it's basically a zero sum game? Like, basically.
Well, like for example, DJ White Skittles has got a wife. Okay, ain't that some shit? You know what I'm saying? I take care of her. I come home. I cook the meals every day. I take all the trash out. I do all the laundry. Okay, I even mend our own clothes. That's how DJ White Skittles does it. It's all about me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how about you? How's your daily routine go?
Well, my daily routine, I do a lot of studying. For those of you who might not know, I pick a topic that I'm interested in, and I try to find out as much information as I can about the topic, and then what I do is, once I learn that information, I like to practice it until it becomes second nature. And then once it becomes second nature, then I start to apply it. I start to use it, because I think that a lot of times people say that knowledge is power, but I think that the application of knowledge is what makes it powerful. So a lot of times I study, and then other times, of course, the laundry and stuff that comes, but a lot of my
you know what I think is power?
What?
Power is power.
How do you think power is attained and maintained?
Well, like, let's say you have the letters to make the word power on a Scrabble game, and you end the R on the triple letter. That's when you win. That's when you win.
So it's all about taking the tools that you have and putting it in the proper place.
Hey, where's Nene at?
Nene unfortunately couldn't make it today.
See, Nene's got power. That's a woman with power. Hey, man. Well, thank you for letting me call in. All right, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, White Skittles, man. You gotta let me know where I can find some of those, man. See if they taste any good.
WhiteSkittles.com.
WhiteSkittles.com.
Twitter feed. Follow me at.
All right, man. And let them know you heard it from the Ain't That Some radio show. We appreciate that call, DJ White Skittles, man. And that is something to think about. Power. Power is power. So how do we get to that point where we have power? I guess the the point to take from that is to focus on ourselves, um, to not really get caught up in other people's problems and to work out our own problems. But then again, there's so much out there. Uh, you know, there's so much out there that can't be ignored. I mean, you can ignore it, but sometimes I wonder if as a human being, if we have a duty as a person to do what we can in order to do our part to make things easier. Like, we want to leave the world a better place than it was when we got here, or we want to make a more positive impact. Um, or at least I think a lot of people want to make a more positive impact than what was there when we got here. So if we, I mean, we have to prioritize, and the self does have to come first. But at what point do we uh, reach out to help others? Because like sometimes sometimes when you help others, even though um, you tend to want to do it for altruistic reasons, you don't want to do it necessarily for personal gain. But sometimes when you help others, I noticed that it can help you learn more about yourself too. Like sometimes they show you some things that you weren't aware of, and sometimes you can learn a lot from people. Like for instance, when I'm teaching people some of the things that I learn, which has happened. It happens every now and then when I teach people the things that I've learned. Um, some of the skills. What happens is it helps me to actually memorize what I'm teaching others better than if I'm just sitting in a lecture. And it also, because they're different people have a different way at looking at things. So when you have different people who have a different point of view and a different way at, of thinking, you can learn something sometimes from those people. From because sometimes other people see things and recognize things that we miss. So I guess that's why they say two heads are better than one. Um, But back to the topic, like for instance, I'm not sure how many of you are aware about like the tomatoes that we eat. There's actually immigrant workers that actually it's kind of, it's really modern day slavery, the way that these people are treated. And it's like, that they get paid such a low salary, like when they get paid such a low amount that it's less than minimum wage, and in order to survive, they have to pair up and have 6 7 people to a home in order to have shelter. And I'm thinking, with all of the problems that we have, uh for a lot of us, it really hasn't gotten that bad yet. But if it were to ever get that bad, like, would we be able to have the mentality to be able to overcome something like that, or would we be so used to what we have that we wouldn't know how to deal? Because sometimes when you learn how to when you recognize a problem and you learn how to solve a problem, I think that a lot of times you can use that knowledge to solve one problem to help you solve the problems that you might have. Because it's a small world. A lot of times people, when you have issues and you might feel like you're the only one who has certain problems. There's somebody else who has experienced the exact, maybe not exact identical same thing, but they have similar experiences. And that's a lot to be gained from that knowledge. um and I keep bringing up knowledge. What are some of the things that I have been able to learn? Let's see. some of the things that I've been able to learn that makes a positive impact on me today. Well, for one thing that I thought I would never need for whatever reason was to learn how to type. I actually did not want to learn how to type. I didn't think I would really use computers that much. And I'm glad that I did take that typing class because it makes things a lot easier. Learning music theory, learning, well, when I say music theory, bits and pieces of it, because it's so elaborate that it's really hard to say, you're just learning it. Learning harmony, diatonic and non-diatonic harmony, learning chords and scales. That can help. Learning how to construct, uh, you know, how to build on that, build chord progressions and successions. Learning about cadences and the different types. Learning about bass lines, things like that. Things that once you learn it and you practice it, you can begin to apply it, because that's something that I enjoy is music. And uh a few weeks ago too, one of the callers that called in was actually one of the people that actually helped me to get started. They helped me to get started, and before I got started, there were actually people that actually made me realize that I had a need for learning that information, because I remember one time I went to the state fair, and there was a gentleman who he was practicing on the piano. Well, he was really showcasing it for the people, and some of the things that I heard from him were things that I wasn't, they were things that I weren't used to. And he helped to convince me that I really had a need to learn those things so that I could either reproduce those kind of sounds, or, at least have the knowledge to produce the type of sounds that I wanted to produce. So, when I took, see, before, when I was into music, I had that ignorance, I had that lack of knowledge, and I didn't realize the importance of learning, the aspects of music theory. And then when I gained more knowledge, then I realized, yes, it is a process, but that process is worth it. A lot of times I think that when we see a problem, or we fail to see a problem because we really don't want to deal with the problem. A lot of times, like when I talk with people that say, "Oh, you don't need this and that," it's true to a point. You don't need it, but it doesn't really hurt to have it. And I think sometimes it's a easy way out, or a cop out for people that don't really want to deal with the problem. And you can see that a lot of times, with the same situation, problems, a lot of problems in the world. A lot of times people don't want to face, those issues, or they don't want to own up to it, because it reveals to us, a ugly side of humanity. Sometimes we like to turn away, or stick our head in the sand, or so that we don't have to deal with it. It's almost like a cancer that it starts off, in one limb of our body, and we ignore it because it hasn't spread all over the body, in hopes that it goes away, and instead of getting treatment for the cancer before it becomes a bigger problem. um if there are any solutions to the issues, and a lot of that's a lot of there's a lot for me to do research on it too, if I really do want to learn more and more about it, because while it was very insightful, there's still a lot that I haven't learned about it. I mean, there's so much that we use, and there's a lot of things that we don't think about, because we don't really have to think about, because it doesn't really necessarily affect us. But if if it did affect us uh down the road, um it would help us, possibly in dealing with the problem if we helped somebody who had a similar problem deal with that problem, you know. So if there are any solutions, if any, to any social or, you know, any problems with people who are being mistreated, you know, like how much of a role do we as consumers play in it, and how much of a role could we play in possibly uh improving the conditions, because I mean it's really not a lot of times until something becomes things don't really become a big deal to people until people's awareness of issues and opinions change. Like at one point of time, you know, slavery wasn't really an issue to people, but eventually people did see it as wrong. I mean, we see it as wrong now. And when we look back on history, you know, down the road, we probably won't be here, but when they look back on history to see how we dealt with you know, the problems that we have currently, you know, what will they say about us? What impact will we leave behind? And sometimes, you know, I think about those things, but I guess um the mind wanders sometimes. And you know, then again, sometimes there are more essential matters, because I do understand the need to prioritize too, because you can't allow those things that are going on to make you lose focus on you know what's important now. But you know, it just makes me wonder, like, is it possible though? Is it possible to still survive? Because yeah, we need food to survive without without harming other people to do it. Like we don't directly do it, but the corporations that we support, you know, if they play a part in it, then yeah, we may not be the ones, you know, doing it, but we support the corporations who do it. It's kind of like somebody supporting the the uh the crops, or supporting clothes made from the 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 cotton that was picked by the slaves that slave owners owned or something. I mean, it's basically a similar situations. Um, if anybody is interested in calling and discussing the topic, or if anything is on your mind, you know, just today, if you just have things on your mind or things that interest you, feel free to call in at area code 727-493-2055. That's area code 727-493-2055 for the Ain't That Some Radio show. And you'll be talking to Papa. And you know, it's really interesting how quickly it's really interesting how, like, when like say I learned something let's see here. Let's say I learned something about time management, since I'm, you know, doing business management. Let's say I learned something about time management. You know, when you learn something, sometimes it's like, do you ever get that feeling where it's like, oh yeah, it's like something that you already should have known, or something that you already it already makes sense to you when you learn it, but you never really thought about it in that way. Um like sometimes uh when I talk to people about certain things, sometimes they have a way of making me look at things differently, or allow me to see things from a perspective that I might not see it from on my own, because you know people have different ways of thinking. Um, I've met some pretty intelligent people over the years who have you know helped me along the way. That there's been some people who have given me some encouragement to to actually take the time to talk with me and help me to focus on goals. Because one thing I noticed too is when you set a goal for yourself, whether a personal goal, and you start seeing yourself achieve that goal, it gives you the confidence to set out to achieve other goals. And sometimes when I see people, like it could be something simple, like you can see something that it's not a big deal to you because you might already know it, but you see a kid, for instance, like when they're trying to learn, when they're first learning to ride a bike. Like when I was 7 years old, I was first learning to ride a bike. I remember I started out fine and I rolled into a ditch. Okay. I rolled in, I think it was a ditch. It was something. I didn't bang my head on anything. I just scraped my knee a little bit. But I was so determined that I think it was the very next day, I learned to ride a bike. And if we have that same determination that children have when they first learn to walk, or when children pick up something new, I wonder how much more gratifying and satisfying things can be. Because I remember a discussion about the human mind. Like, the human mind is very powerful. There were cases of people who have had cancer, or at least one person. This is a case. They had cancer, and they were told that they would not make it out of the hospital. They wouldn't survive, and that person just kept telling themselves um, that they were going to just enjoy life and have a good time. Um, and they ended up. I don't know how this happened, but their cancer ended up curing. And there was another person who was told they would never walk again, and they made it their goal to walk out of the hospital by Christmas, and they actually exceeded their goal. Like, I've learned, or I've been taught that as human beings, we only use a small percentage of our minds. So we really don't fully grasp how much the mind is capable of. So I wonder we actually miss out on, or how much more we're capable of, or how do we unlock that percentage of the mind that we don't use. Because I remember there was a trailer for a movie, and I never got to see it, but I've wanted to see it. Of course, it's old now. I believe it was called Limitless. And I remember in the trailer there was a man who took a pill, and when he took this pill, it allowed him to be able to learn things a lot quicker and more efficiently, and he could do things that he couldn't do before, or that he could do before, but he hadn't unlocked the potential to do. And I wonder, like, if we were capable of unlocking if we weren't capable of unlocking our hidden potential, I wonder how much we would discover that we could do that we aren't even sure about yet. I wonder you know, how much it would benefit humanity as a whole, and how much better off things would be if we were capable of unlocking that potential. Because when I saw that trailer of the man, of course he took a physical pill. I kind of look at that as a metaphor. I look at that pill as a metaphor for awareness, or the opening of the mind. Because a lot of times I think that we allow ourselves to become closed minded. We're not necessarily, people aren't necessarily stupid. It's just that we have ideas, and sometimes we're unwilling to compromise our ideas, or we're unwilling to look at ideas from different perspectives, or unwilling to look at different ideas. And sometimes, like, a person, have you ever met a person who could be so smart, like they're so intelligent, but you can't really tell them anything, you can't really tell them everything because they already in their minds they already know it all. So it's like if the I mean they're intelligent, but because of their intelligence, uh, it's almost a blessing and a curse. It becomes a crutch because it prevents them from learning anything new. Because somebody, even though somebody can be smarter than another person, it doesn't mean that the person that they're smarter than can't teach them something new. And sometimes a person could be so smart that they won't listen when somebody else you know tries to show them something new, and and then that person misses out, and they miss out on knowledge that could have made uh that person who's already intelligent even smarter. And I wonder how much of our potential we squander away sometimes because I know being in business management, being in school for business management, uh one of the things you learn about is time management. You learn about return on investments. And sometimes I wonder how much of our energy do we invest on things that are of low benefit to us, which would kind of be what will kind of fall into the point of the caller made about we need to focus on ourselves and our own power too. Because when we spend our time, we only have so much time. Time is finite, it's not infinite. uh we only have a limited amount of time, and how we use that time, uh whether we use it effectively or ineffectively, it 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 all accumulates, and it has an effect on us. If we use our time in effective manners, then we're gonna have more effective results. If we spend more of our time, being wasteful with our time, and to me, time is the most valuable resource because time doesn't really replenish itself. And there's a lot that you can do with time. If we spend our time, you know, not prioritizing or having the wrong priorities, how much of that potential that could have been harnessed do we waste away? It's kind of like when you look at time, it's kind of like looking at a budget where you have so much money, but instead of money, it's time. Uh, Obviously, if you go into business, there's going to be associated costs with those businesses, and when you take those costs out, that takes away. Um, when you subtract it from your uh revenue, that leaves you with that profit. But if you waste too much money, or if you overspend your budget, then you're not going to have that profit. And in the same way, if you waste too much of your time on things that are not profitable, then your time isn't going to be profitable neither. But there's a part of me that also feels though that if you do manage to make it, if you do manage to figure out a way to be profitable with your time and to do things, that I don't think that it is wrong necessarily to help the less fortunate, to kind of teach them how to get out of that position, or to help people who are in a bad position to get into a better position. Because we, at some point of time, I think we all needed help, unless we were just born into a rich family or whatever. I think that for most of the time, I think most of us at some point needed help or some sort of guidance, because really, truth be told, nobody really does things on their own. We all kind of are connected, um, if not directly, then indirectly. But it's real interesting. That there's just so much that my eyes are being open to, and it's just a matter of for me, it's a matter of prioritizing and deciding what I want to take in, uh, what knowledge do I want to place the most emphasis on. And right now, there's just so much information out there, and I just have to decide, what do I want to do with this information, and I need to be able to separate what information I need right now from the information that I don't need. And I'm pretty sure, especially with college students, or even if if you're in any type of school, or you're learning anything, if you're in a trade school too, like, there's so much information sometimes coming your way. You can get that information overload, which is why, of course, that's one of the reasons why I learned about using a mnemonics, connection mnemonics. Is actually one of my favorite forms of mnemonics. And chunking, connection mnemonics is basically just using knowledge that you already know, to learn things that you don't know. Um, like you can use some kind of similarity, and then with chunking, you just is basically you're breaking it down into chunks. I would view it as like, how when you eat your food, the acids in your body breaks down your food so that your body can digest it. And I think that it's the same way with knowledge. With knowledge, a lot of times you don't want it all coming your way at once. You want to kind of break it down into smaller portions so that your mind can be able to digest it. Because once you can digest it, of course, unlike the body, when you digest food, of course, you it becomes excess, it becomes waste. But with knowledge, instead of it becoming waste, it can actually become something that can be useful to you down the road. It can be skills that you learn for the rest of your life. Like, I haven't ridden a bike in years, but I still know how to do it because it's something that stuck with me. And I can remember falling into that ditch and scraping my knee, and how that made me more determined than I was prior to learn how to ride a bike. So maybe that's maybe the some of the issues that I point out is kind of like the scraping the knee. It seems like a big issue at the time, but maybe if we have a common goal, we have enough determination, that scraping the knee can heal, and we can actually move forward. We can actually make progress. Because when I was riding the bike, I can't remember what type of of bike it was. I don't know if it was I was like, I wasn't right. There were these grown ups that were riding bikes, and I wasn't right along with them, but I was like a couple feet behind. Like, I was keeping up with them. Like, I couldn't quite keep pace with them, but I think for a 7-year old, I was doing pretty well. Then again, they probably weren't trying their hardest though, but I was pretty close. And I think that when it comes to making progress, um you know I think that if we have the same mentality that a child has when they trying to achieve something for the first time, um I think that can be something. So, you know let's see, to conclude, there are a lot of there's a lot that goes on in this world. There's too much for me to really there's more than my mind is capable of processing without me going into shock, because it's just information overload. But if there's anything that we could do, and of course it starts with having more having more awareness, because you have to have awareness about a problem first. You have to recognize a problem in order to be able to fix a problem. So that could be when I have time between between my studies, and other priorities. That could be something that I can learn on the side, and actually see what some of the problems are, and see if there are some possible solutions. And maybe when enough awareness is brought to a lot of the issues that we have in the world. And when enough people start to become outraged when they see it as a moral issue, I think that's when that when things can start to change, because I think sometimes um people become conditioned to think, because it doesn't affect them in that moment of time, not to care about it. And it kind of reminds me of that saying, um well, there's so many different versions of it, but they came after one group, but because I wasn't part of that group, I didn't protest. And then they came after another, and because I wasn't part of that group, I didn't protest. And then when they came after me, there was no one left to protest. And I dread to see the day that happens, because if we don't have each other's backs now, when, if ever, will it happen? But maybe it's a problem that's bigger than anything most of us can undertake, because I do realize, survival does come first. We gotta be in a position before we can help anybody. We gotta be in a position to help ourselves. And I just like to uh thank everybody who has listened and encouraged me. And I thank DJ White Skittles for the call earlier. I appreciate you, man. And if anybody wants to call in, uh the area code is 727-493 2055. That's area code 727-493-2055. For anybody who has any final thoughts. Um that's not really I mean, there's so much that I could get into, but I think I need to become more knowledgeable about certain topics too, if I'm going to say anything, significant, and not so generic, more specific. Because I mean, there's a lot more to it that I haven't even touched, because it just boggles the mind, to find out a lot of the things that you may be sheltered from. But there's so many people out there, that are going through it. And before we close this show out, well, we before I close this show out, um, I don't want to forget, if you're interested in a family vacation, if you're interested in resorts, uh, there's myfvn.net slash backslash streets of gold. That's myfvn.net backslash streets of gold, for anybody who's interested in a family getaway. And there's more that I wanted to say, but it evades me at this time. So really, um man, it would have been cool if I could have brought like something to showcase something for y'all, but that's okay. Until next time, I think I'm going to close this one out. And until next time, this has been another episode of Ain't That Some Shh. And take care and have a fantastic, wonderful day. Once I might have to wait. I'm closing. Yeah. Take care, guys.